Hi, my name is David Parker. I'm the Minister for the Environment. The RMA is a really important piece of legislation. Every country needs a good cornerstone piece of legislation to both manage environmental effects but also enable development that we need for the likes of housing. And there's a pretty broad consensus in New Zealand that the RMA is past its use-by date, takes too long, costs too much, and it really hasn't adequately protected the environment if you look at what our outcomes have been for freshwater and climate change, for example. Now, not all of those problems are caused by the RMA, but the RMA and some of its imperfections are part of the problem. And so we're proposing to replace it with three pieces of legislation. Firstly, the Natural and Built Environments Act. That will have an environmental test which protects biophysical values for future generations, but also will help facilitate development of housing so that we have affordable housing. The second piece of legislation is a Strategic Planning Act that sits across the new Natural and Built Environments Act, what we call the NBA, above the Local Government Act, the Climate Change Response Act, and the Land Transport Management Act. And that'll enable long-term strategic decisions to be made so that we get ahead in a bit of our infrastructure planning. We reserve the areas that shouldn't be subject to development pressure, but we can buy infrastructure sites like areas that we need for hospitals and roads in the future. The third piece of legislation is the Managed Retreat and Climate Change Adaptation Act, and that will help us deal with some of these issues that are coming at us in the coming decades as a consequence of climate change. We're trying to finish off these three parts within this parliamentary term. We promised at the election we'd done that. We've got the advantage of a lot of prior work by the Productivity Commission, a group of which was included Environmental Defence Society, the Northern EMA, property investors, and also Infrastructure New Zealand. We've had Waitangi Tribunal reports, we've had input from local government. It's time to get on with it, see this through to conclusion, which we hope to do, or we intend to do within this 3-year period of this government. Last thing I'll say is that the NBA part of it is kicked off by an exposure draft which is going to go to an inquiry through a select committee to which the public will be able to submit. That draws on the work of the Randerson panel, which was very detailed, and it'll include the main equivalent of part 2 of the RMA plus some other essential sections, and we'll have a good look in those at detail while we do the drafting for the rest of the Act, which is important, but a lot of that's more administrative. The core part 2 replacement will have an initial round of consultation through that select committee inquiry, and then later in the year the Strategic Planning Act and the full Natural and Built Environments Act will go through another select committee process. We've got good engagement with local government, we've got separate engagement with iwi. Their interests in the RMA are well known and well reported on by the Waitangi Tribunal. So there's a lot of work ahead for everyone. We really encourage members of the public to engage.